The story starts with a simple form. And look at this, it's harmless, right? Have full name, name of the insured person, have a Medicare provider number. You can find it in the right upper corner of your payment slip. All right, dear friends, can you tell me which, if you understand, which of these fields are required and which are optional? Okay, let's iterate, right? We're designers, let's iterate. Well, what about then maybe something like this? Is it better? Is it clearer which one is required, which is optional? All right, is this as good as this? Okay, but why stop there, right? Optional, it's like it's a little bit difficult to find and stuff like that. Is this maybe better? All right, well, why stop here, actually? I mean, let's take it all the way, right? I mean, isn't it the rule that they tell us, the more explicit it is, the better and the easier it is to understand? Let's just go all the way, right? Is this the ideal scenario, the ideal design for this sort of situation? All right, okay. I bring it back. I unbold optional. Okay, are we good now? Okay, asterisk. Okay, yeah, I get that. Let me design like. Okay, maybe this then. So no asterisk. Let's just do required. Why am I showing all of this? Well, this decision cannot be made like this. Not a single person is going to look at the screen like this and thinking, asterisk, right? That's required. All right, excellent. Optional. Okay, that's great, right? No, we need to think about it from the higher, kind of larger perspective. Here, it's impossible to decipher what is required, what is optional. This, still impossible to decipher what is optional, what is required. This, better. Right? At some point you can say, maybe optional is not even needed here at all, right? And then, of course, this is not going to work. Why? Well, because it looks like error messages all over the place, right? That's not great. So what do we do? Well, one thing I know we're speaking about error messages, but before we get there, we need to prevent error messages in the first place in some way or the other, right? So when we get here, right, the best thing we can do is to maybe please, for the sake of, I don't know, clarity in this world and sanity of this world, please don't do this. This is not helpful, right? Just not, right? Please avoid this as much as you can. And this is not a fake example or so. This is just really, really confusing. So what do we do then? Well, we can start either with an asterisk or with an optional, right? There are basically two different ways of thinking about this. And I think in overall, there are kind of two different paradigms, I guess. On the one hand, there is gov.uk and there is Adam Silver, who's been also publicizing a lot of research that he has been doing on form design. And he said that, well, we mark something in the interface to indicate that it's different, that it stands out. Most fields in forms today are required, so we need to mark only the exceptions, and that would be only optional, right? But on the other hand, you look at some other research, one of them coming from Baymard Institute, the big institute on, well, this kind of research project on all around e-commerce, say by explicitly denoting both optional and required fields, the user isn't forced to infer anything, can progress seamlessly throughout the entire form without any back and forth scanning of previous fields. And that's also very much what the Norman Nielsen Group is suggesting, right? So the idea being is, well, you either mark optional and required, or only required, or only optional, right? But if you look at gov.uk, you mark only optional. If you look at Norman Nielsen Group and you look at Baymard Institute, you mark both. It's probably just really strange to mark only required. That's kind of, I guess, the attitude that we often have here, which is not always what's happening on the web, though. That's just something to keep in mind. But this is what the research is telling us, right? On the project, I decided to use neither of these options. And I'm going to show you what we ended up doing, again, with a simple reason to prevent errors from happening in the first place. Because this is, in my book, the best way to design an error message, to not have one. What if we did this? Well, the thinking behind it was, well, if it's optional in the first place, then let's just make it look different, right? So if it's optional, then people can add their Medicare number, can add the benefit ID, and that's optional, so they can also skip it. But then the things that are visible that they have to type in, they're right here. Now, here in this case, you could even say, let's drop optional, and maybe let's drop asterisks as well, right? and to see again if this is making difference. Kind of change this perception based on how the design or how the input looks like. And of course, whenever you start actually typing in something here, right, it could look like this, right? You can actually start clicking, let's say, add a Medicare number, and then it actually shows up when you actually tap on it. Adds an extra step, agree with Florentino there, but it's much more clear like what is optional, what is not. That's just an example here. It doesn't have to be add, right, Dario? It can actually, you can rephrase it in any way you like. It's kind of just the thing when you click on it, then it actually opens the text box, right? But by default, it's not even visible. So it kind of really clears the air a little bit and prevents us, kind of just an example of what we can do to prevent those errors from occurring in the first place.